in the giant laboratory. The attack of the giant goldfish. Refuge in a giant egg crate. A moment of sanctuary. Then, but there can be no sanctuary in the land of the giants.
Set in the then future of 1983, Irwin's fourth television series, The Land of the Giants, premiered September 21st, 1968. The pilot episode concerned the passengers aboard a futuristic airliner traveling from Los Angeles to London.
What's happening to us?
What's that thing out there, ma'am?
We hit some kind of strange time warp, some big green ball, and then we were on this place where everything was 12 times larger. It was some kind of parallel world.
It's drawing us in. Like a magnet.
What they encounter when they crash land is more than they or the audience can comprehend.
Stay where you are, please.
It's the funniest looking London fog I've ever seen.
If it really is London.
Maybe we'd better go out to see where we are.
Irwin had been developing his idea for Land of the Giants for nearly 2 years, and of course, directed the critical first episode himself.
He knew exactly what he wanted. There was no vacillating. I mean, this is the shot for everybody, for the actors, for the camera, for lighting, for everybody, sound. He knew everything.
Irwin told his set designers to think big. He wanted them to build a world large enough for giants to live in. Unlike today's sci-fi blockbusters, Irwin Allen didn't have computers or digital effects. When you saw big props on the screen, there were big props in the studio. His sets were among the most expensive and elaborate ever made for a television series.
There must be a way out.
It was enormous. The set where the ship, had crash landed. And, I mean, it was 360-degree cyclorama surrounding 2 sound stages with these huge trees, and it was incredible.
Marker. Hey, boy. And action!
He was absolutely in love with this stuff, and you could see it. I mean, he would just get starry-eyed when he'd come down to the set. It was his playground. It was his big toy. And he would bring his friends down to see, what new toy he had. Because Irwin was a kid, and so was I, and so I kind of recognized what he was doing.
When we shot the first episode, before we ever saw how it was going to be put together, we felt so foolish, standing there going, looking up at the Klieg light and pretending. But when it was all put together and we saw how Irwin was a magician and he made it work.
It was a little different for me because I was more into concentrating and eyeballing somebody or getting into their head. And when you're talking to a spotlight and there's nobody there, it was a little different, that's all.
The most humorous moments would happen when you thought you were maybe talking to a giant, and that was what your whole emotional fabric would be all about.
You're making a mistake.
And then later on when they cut, you found that actually you were talking to a giant chicken. There was one hand. That was every giant's hand.
He's going to have this radio.
And after a while, we swore it had a life of its own, because it could be a very mischievous hand.
Constantly coming in and scooping us up and then flipping over, and we'd fall out the other side. It never quite worked, but Irwin loved that hand. That hand was very important to him.
One squeeze of his fingers, that's all it takes.
The Scotch tape over the old bod, that was kind of ridiculous, you know. That gave us the giggles when Gary and I were on the slab, you know, under the microscope.
Because of the giant props, Land of the Giants was the most physically challenging of all Irwin series. The actors had to be in top physical condition and often performed their own stunts.
I mean, you saw us climbing those ropes. I mean, that was us.
Damn breeze!
Eventually they got some people in there for us to do stunts for us, you know, later on.
Of course, not all the dangerous stunts were handled by the stuntmen. During the filming of The Chamber of Fear, the script called for Don Matheson to fall into a giant revolving gear and pretend to be unconscious.
I hit that plank just dead center. I said, this is beautiful to myself. I had my eyes closed. I'm unconscious. And then all of a sudden, something whacked me in the back of the head. Nobody caught it. It looked great on film. It looked very real. And Deanna was in the shot, and she was hysterical. She almost fell off the scaffolding because she thought it was, you know, funny.
It's Barry. I'm in trouble.
He's always held that against me. He's never forgiven me for that. Where I always let his head get cut off, right? No. Well, I mean, I tried, you know. I mean, I didn't try to cut it off. I tried to help. But, you know, he was in serious trouble. And they just kept grinding. You know, this is great acting.